boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The unification match, the big unification match set to go down this Friday in Denmark.
I honestly can't remember a time when there was a unified bantamweight champion in the women's bantamweight division. It's been a division that has stayed divided for a very long time.
It's all set to change this upcoming Friday when Dina Thorslund of Denmark shares the ring with Hangaluna of Mexico in what is a WBC WBO unification match. You would have thought that because the other two champions at this weight, Nina Hughes and Ebony Bridges, because they're both with Matchroom, that unification match would have happened before this one, but that's not the case.
As it stands, the two younger champions, also the two more accomplished fighters, will be locking horns.
Dina Thorslund and Hangaluna, both 29 years old, both younger than Nina Hughes and Ebony Bridges, but also more accomplished, more rounds in the bank, having been champions at more weights than either Nina or Ebony.
Number one versus number two.
Dina Thorslund, who sports a professional record, an unblemished record of 19 wins with no losses, no draws,
8 knockouts.
to Hangaluna, who sports a professional record of 25 wins with 3 losses, 1 draw.
4 knockouts, but don't let that fool you. Hangaluna can punch. She's not a knockout merchant, but she does have respectable power.
They both do. In truth, I think in terms of power, they're about the same, but Dina Thorslund, being a lot more aggressive and a lot more come forward than Hangaluna, she puts her power on display more often than Hang does, having last seen action in February of this year opposite the ring Argentina's own former champion, Deborah Ana E. Lopez, scoring an 8th round TKO stoppage.
Dina wasn't that busy last year. She only fought once last year, and she's already seen action once this year.
To Hangaluna, who had a more productive last year than Dina did. Hang fought 2 times last year, and she's already fought once, at least once this year, back in March.
That's saying that both fighters have seen action in the last 12 months, and neither one of them have any ring rust they need to shake off.
Say that Hangaluna has fought the better caliber of fighter, the better quality of competition of the two, having shared the ring with legend Mariana Juarez and the hard-punching Mayeli Flores,
Jessica Gonzalez,
Maureen Shea of the United States a few years ago. Comparatively, Hangaluna's resume is a more robust body of work than what you get from Dina, but Dina's very talented, and she's fought 1 or 2 good fighters herself.
What's this fight gonna look like?
Well, as stated, in terms of power, I think they're about even in terms of power. It's just that Dina Thorslund is a more aggressive fighter than Hangaluna, so she puts her power on display more often than Hang does. I anticipate that what we're going to see once the opening bell sounds is Dina Thorslund looking to get mid-range to inside on Hangaluna, who has a propensity to move lateral.
Use the ring.
Similar aesthetic to what we saw in Thorslund versus Adams, April Adams. Similar aesthetic to what we saw in Hangaluna versus Mayeli Flores.
Guadalupe Martinez.
Similar to what we saw in those fights, where Hangaluna is giving up a bit of ground, creating a bit of space to set up the counter shots, the counter hooks, the uppercuts up the middle.
She's cerebral like that. She likes to set traps.
Even though she packs an authoritative punch and she can handle herself mid-range to inside, she is tough. She is a more cerebral fighter, more prone to using her legs, moving around.
Than Dina Thorslund.
Noticed on BoxRec, they have Dina Thorslund listed as a taller, longer fighter than Hangaluna, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. To the eye, it seems like Hang is the more long and limber fighter of the two, the taller fighter.
Sometimes BoxRec gets it wrong in terms of the tail of the tape.
I think Dina is the shorter, stumpier fighter of the two with the lower center of gravity. Now, as stated, in terms of power, I think they're about even, but in terms of speed, I actually think Dina's a little faster than Hangaluna.
Shorter arms, shorter punches, harder to counter.
Seems to me that Hangaluna has the longer levers, the longer extremities of the two, and she is a little slower than Dina Thorslund.
That'll make a difference.
I think that Dina Thorslund will very much be the aggressor, and Hangaluna will be the defender, looking to set traps and set up counters, uppercuts up the middle. Dina Thorslund's got to mind those uppercuts.
She is the shorter, stumpier fighter of the two and the more aggressive fighter of the two, so if she's not careful, she might be in line for an uppercut, a hard one.
It's going to be a tough fight. It's a 50-50 fight.
I almost don't want to call it. I just want to sit back and enjoy, though if I had to guess...
Two things stand out to me in this contest. It's Dina Thorslund that has home field advantage. And in a situation where the rounds are close and the fighters, it's hard to separate them. More often than not, the local fighter, the hometown fighter, they get consideration.
Home field advantage is a real thing, and Dina's got it.
Tack on that Dina Thorsland has the look of being a busier fighter than Usyk Hangaluna. Usyk Hangaluna is more prone to moving around and trying to set traps. She's fighting a thinking man's fight, whereas Dina's busier, shows more initiative, more aggressiveness.
There's a thin line between creating a bit of space to set a trap and retreating, and oftentimes the judges...
You don't coast on foreign soil. That's what they say.
The chance to those judges, Dina Thorsland gives off the appearance of being the busier, more prolific puncher in the fight, and that might be enough to win her the rounds.
Because she's coming forward, because she's busier, because she's got home field advantage.
Slight edge to the hometown fighter, slight edge to Dina Thorsland.
That patented body attack of hers, those hooks to the body. As stated, Usyk Hangaluna looks a taller, longer fighter to me than Dina Thorsland, and that lines her up for some shots to the midsection, shots to the body. Dina Thorsland has a propensity to go there.
I mean, it's close, and it's tough, and these are the two best champions at bantamweight, but gun to my head, I'm going with Dina Thorsland. I'm going with Dina Thorsland on points behind being the busier fighter with home field advantage.
Available for purchase here in the US of A by way of Fight TV at a low, low price of just $5.99. That's roughly $6. $6 American.
Looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming.
It's a close fight. It's a tight fight between the two best bantamweights in the division, though. If I had to guess, I'd give the edge to Dina Thorsland. And we'll see this Friday if that prediction pans out. And heavyweight news, the continued fallout of this past weekend's title fight. Johnny Nelson, former cruiserweight champion turned analyst, says it was not a low blow, but I don't think Daniel would have won.
He thinks it was legal.
The boxing public is divided, with many observers saying the punch was legal and just as many tapping it as a low blow. Nelson felt the punch was valid. I don't think the shot was illegal, and I think what Usyk did is what most footballers do when they get flicked over the ear and they roll about 15 times. I think he milked it. He milked it well. But I think the best man won, Nelson told Talk Sport.
You know, ahead of the fight, Johnny Nelson said that Daniel Dubois got quit in him, and Alexander Usyk knows it.
That if Usyk presses him, Daniel's going to give up. Daniel's going to quit because he's quit before. Saying that Daniel Dubois was robbed of the victory is a presupposition that suggests Usyk wouldn't have gotten up if the referees started counting.
And I saw veteran trainer Dominic Engel address that presupposition by asking, how do we know Usyk wouldn't have gotten up? How do we know that he wouldn't have rode out the rest of the round and survived? Him being such a smart fighter, proven on a big stage, bigger stages than Daniel's ever fought on.
Johnny Nelson is making a similar assertion. Nelson believes Usyk would have gotten up had the referee issued a count and eventually moved forward to beat Daniel in the later rounds. I don't think Dubois was robbed at all. I do think that it wasn't a low blow, but I still don't think he'd have beaten Usyk, Nelson said.
It's again, the idea that Daniel was robbed of the victory relies on the assumption that Usyk wouldn't have gotten up, that he wouldn't have survived the round.
Many are pointing to the amount of time it took for Usyk to rise to his feet, but it only took that amount of time because referee Louis Pabon told him to stay down, told him to take his time.
The reaction might have been different had he started counting.
Usyk would have hustled his way through the round, but the referee gave him time to recover. What makes you think Usyk couldn't have recovered that round? I just think Usyk would have still had the skills to get through it, but we'll never know. That's the debate. If most of us are true and honest, we'd hoped that Daniel would win. He had a puncher's chance to win the fight, and if they fight again, the same thing will happen. Daniel will lose.
Frank Warren wants them to fight again. He's ramping up this Justice for Daniel crusade.
This entire fiasco has given both Frank Warren and Daniel Dubois a crutch to lean on in what was a lopsided defeat, a lopsided loss where Daniel gave up and everyone saw it.
Just trying to distract people from that with this stuff.
What do you think Daniel means when he says that he was disheartened, quote unquote, disheartened, that he lost momentum? What momentum? Leading up to the fifth round, he was down 4.
I had it a clean sweep in favor of Usyk going into the fifth round. 4 rounds to 0.
What momentum? To what momentum is Daniel referring to? He says he was disheartened when he saw the referee didn't start counting.
It's just another way of saying you quit. Mentally, you checked out.
I don't want to be unnecessarily harsh on the kid. I know he's young, and I understand this is a tough sport, a hard profession, but when you look at the beating that Errol Spence Jr. endured at the hands of Terrence Crawford, and he wouldn't stay down. He wouldn't quit.
Got knocked down more times than Daniel did. He got knocked down 3 times, but he kept rising to his feet. He wouldn't stay down.
The beating that Errol Spence Jr. suffered at the hands of Terrence Crawford, the beating that Stephen Fulton suffered at the hands of Naoya Inoue, he wouldn't stay down. He wouldn't give up. He wouldn't give in, even though it was a lopsided affair.
So we're supposed to feel sorry for Daniel?
I mean, how many lopsided beatings have you seen where the guy could stay down, he could give up, he could quit, but he doesn't? John Ryder could have stayed down in the Canelo Alvarez fight.
He didn't have to keep going.
Went into that fight with Canelo just as big, if not a bigger underdog against Canelo than Daniel did against Usyk. And John didn't have to keep going. He didn't have to keep taking a one-sided beating, but he did because he's not a quitter. So we're supposed to feel sorry for Daniel,
Who quit after getting hit with a jab.
Wilder didn't have to keep going against Tyson Fury in the second fight or the third. I mean, for all the criticisms I've levied against Deontay Wilder, one thing he ain't is a quitter.
Like Daniel.
Justice for Daniel. Are you kidding me?
We already know what Frank's angle is in all of this, and Daniel's.
Why they're hamming it up as much as they're hamming it up. But what about the people going along with this? What about the proponents?
Those are Tyson Fury fans.
A good number of them. A good number of the people going along with this are Tyson Fury fans, closet Tyson Fury fans that have been waiting for something, anything they could use against Alexander Usyk, because for the most part, he doesn't give you much to complain about inside the ring and outside the ring.
Those are Fury fans.
Just ask them. Ask them whether or not they're fans of Tyson Fury while they try to convince you that Daniel was robbed of a victory due to a borderline shot.
Those are Fury fans.
How long do you think those people were waiting for something they could use against Alexander Usyk and his squeaky clean image, the true road warrior?
How long?
You're saying that Usyk robbed Daniel Dubois of the victory due to a borderline shot. That's quite a leap of faith, but it's not a leap of faith to suggest that Tyson Fury robbed John McDermott years ago.
Yeah.
And just because it's ancient history doesn't mean it ain't history.
That's what the boxing press in the United Kingdom was saying immediately after their initial meeting, that it was a travesty.
While we're on the subject of robberies and fighters being awarded victories that they don't deserve, Tyson Fury was awarded a victory he didn't deserve many, many years ago, and that situation is not tantamount to this one.
That was a robbery.
This is just a bunch of Tyson Fury fans, a bunch of closet Tyson Fury fans grasping at straws for something they can use against Usyk. That's all it is.
Because what they really want is to bring Usyk down to Fury's level. They want Usyk to be as big a scumbag as Tyson Fury, so they don't feel bad for rooting for him.
Even though he's a scumbag, that's what it's all about.
Care so much about robberies. What about that John McDermott robbery? What about that? What about the Nandrolone they found in his system?
You want everybody to be as big a fraud, as big a piece of shit as that walking, talking colostomy bag, so you don't feel bad for supporting him.
These guys saying justice for Daniel, that Daniel was robbed.
That's a reach, and that's all it is. The atypical behavior you expect from the usual suspects.
The usual.
You don't fool anybody. And just in keeping with the theme of men's heavyweight action in the men's heavyweight division, Jared Anderson, who was in action this past weekend, says, "I'm looking to make as much as I can so I can get out as quick as I can."
Adding on to his previous comments that he's not in the sport of boxing for legacy and all that stuff. He's just in it for the business. He's only in it for the money.
I definitely think it's a good thing, as AJ just did, said Anderson to FightHype.com when discussing his ring activity. He had a lot of his flaws and downfalls from not being as active as he was in the beginning of his career. Keeping the ring rust off might be salient, but
that isn't the only reason why Anderson is jumping back into the ring so soon ahead of what was the Rudenko fight that he just had.
The up-and-coming star admitted time and time again that financial freedom is what motivates him the most. He points to his underwhelming bank account as the indication of why he fought again so soon. The goal is to stay active as I can, plus I'm broke. I'm looking to make as much money as I can so I can get out as fast as I can.
Said it before and I'll say it again. I won't begrudge Jared Anderson his honesty.
The biggest takeaway for me is that while the business side of boxing boxing and having a legacy in the sport of boxing, while those things can be mutually exclusive, they can also go hand in hand, because the fighters that ended up making the most money from the sport of boxing, all of them were legacy fighters. Your Oscar De La Hoya, your Floyd Mayweather, your Manny Pacquiao currently, Canelo Alvarez, that the legacy lends itself to the money.
But he maintains that he wants to fight as often as he can, make as much money as he can, so he can get out as fast as he can, and it is what it is.
He's now taken to calling out unbeaten up-and-comer from Cuba, Frankie Sanchez.
That's an interesting call-out.
There are a good number of heavyweights on his own side of the street that he could call out. F.A. Ajagba, who was also in action this past weekend on the undercard of Anderson versus Rudenko, he could fight him. He could be calling him out. But he's calling out unbeaten up-and-comer Frankie Sanchez, who in many ways is a high-risk, low reward.
I'm not a fan of Frankie's boxing. In truth, I'm not a very big fan of many pure boxers, and that's what Frankie is, a completely defensively minded, hit and not get hit, stay on the outside kind of fighter.
Outside jabber, that's actually how he beat F.A. Ajagba and gave F.A. his first professional loss. Just staying on the outside, working that jab, and setting traps.
Frankie's on the PBC side of things, but then again, so was Charles Martin up until recently.
If you're a heavyweight and you're on the PBC side of things, you basically ain't got nothing to fight for, nothing to shoot for, and nothing to do. Wilder's not going to give you the time of day. He's getting ready to fight Anthony Joshua. Andy Ruiz, he thinks he's too good for everything, too good for everybody.
He's not going to fight Frankie Sanchez. Stylistically, that'd be a nightmare for Andy.
Because there are no belts on that side of the street, because there are no big names to fight, none that'll give him the time of day, he should probably take up Jared Anderson on this call-out. Now, why Jared's calling him out, I don't know. It's a high-risk, low-reward fight. I may not be a fan of Frankie's style of boxing, though I'd be lying to you if I told you that he isn't skilled.
He is.
Because he is.
It's not the most entertaining style, you understand, but this is a hard man to beat.
To beat Frankie Sanchez and his minimalist approach to boxing, Jared Anderson would have to put him under a lot of pressure, get front foot heavy, and let the punches go.
Pure boxers hate pressure.
Pure boxers hate volume, being forced to work, being drawn into exchanges.
They hate it.
Pure boxers' propensity to be economic with their work is offset by the volume and aggression of a pressure fighter, and that usually wears on their energy reserves. That's the kind of fight Jared would have to fight to beat Frankie Sanchez.
Not a lot of people calling him out.
Frankie should probably take Jared up on his offer.